episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. Today, no exception. And as a matter of fact, just moments before going on, and that was part of the delay, I did hear from the family of Riley Strain, and I do think that they are going to join at some point. To be perfectly honest, I don't even know exactly who. I was in touch with Chris Dingman, the family spokesperson. I believe it is a cousin, Chelsea, who was on the show yesterday, her brother, and I think an uncle. So we are standing by for them. And Darnell in the bottom right-hand corner, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, was kind enough to come in. He has fairly limited time, but he's going to stick around. And if and when the family bounces in, he will likely bounce out. But obviously, this is a really difficult story to deal with because the family just doesn't know exactly what's going on. Riley Strain, of course, that's 6'7", 160-pound, missing University of Missouri student. He was at a Nashville bar a week ago Friday. Today is day 11. He was with his Delta Chi fraternity brothers, like most fraternity brothers do. They had some drinks. He had one drink at Luke Bryan's bar. They asked him to leave. He was escorted out with a friend. That friend stayed back at the bar. He wandered off, and that is the last time that we heard or have seen Riley Strain. So again, a tough situation. Best guest tonight, top right-hand corner in the shirt that says investigator. That's what he is. Steve Fischer is a private investigator based in California who is actually looking into this case for free and has been speaking with family members. He's I'm going to ask him. I think he's still back in California, but he's doing a lot of the work from there. He will let us know momentarily. And then we've got not just detective, but Dr. Detective Troy Looney, a Ph.D., began his career in Akron, Ohio with the Akron Police Department in 1992. And he is currently serving still there as an active police detective. He has worked homicide, missing persons. He's done it all. But obviously tonight, his expertise in the missing persons unit will come in handy. And then Darnell Blackburn. He is a former Auburn Hills, Michigan police officer, and he now works for WDIV TV, Local 4 in Detroit, as the station's crime and safety expert on all platforms. And Darnell, I know you have Darnell, what is your YouTube channel? I know you have one.
It's Darnell Z. Blackburn. That's it. Darnell Z. Blackburn.
Give him some love. Check it out. Steve Fischer, to you first. So I did hear that the family reached out. Is that correct? When did they reach out? And what is your current relationship as it pertains to this particular case?
I originally had contacted them because I had, even though I'm based in California, I'm licensed in Tennessee, and I looked into the case, and I got in touch with the Tennessee Titans, who have the stadium right across the river, just knowing that they had a lot of surveillance on property, and started talking to one of the uncles and other family members because of that, and then that expanded out into some additional surveillance at other locations that law enforcement had not retrieved surveillance from yet.
Okay, and you're based in California, and are you in California now?
I'm in California right now because I'm here for some search and rescue medic training. But I work out of Tennessee a lot. I'm licensed in Tennessee, and I have 2 active cases going there right now. I'm also in Florida.
Florida is a good place. That's where I am. Always good to be licensed in the crazy state of Florida.
Yeah.
I'm in Miami. But are you? Do you have any plans at this point to be boots on the ground? I know Chris Dingman said he was heading there tomorrow. He is.
I talked with Chris earlier today. I might. I would like to go. I think there's a lot of moving parts right now because they have another group coming in. I believe that came in today, Cajun Army. So I am, a search and rescue specialist, and I'd like to go in there with underwater ROVs and drones that we have with locate software on it, which is a software program for search and rescue and law enforcement. I can do detection, and I have that equipment, and I have some other search and rescue people in the area, so we'd like to go if we can figure out the coordination and everything like that. But I think right now the underwater is a key element to this.
Okay, and we'll get back to you on what an ROV is in a moment. But Dr. Detective Troy Looney, you worked missing persons cases throughout your career. You've been in Akron since '92. Number one, how difficult are these cases? And number two, where do you begin?
Essentially, so it just depends. It's case by case basis, really. So they're all different, but essentially the timeline of when the person was last seen, who they were with, where they were, potentially any digital data, camera surveillance, friends, family, relationships, pretty much I won't want to say victimology, but a timeline with the person we're looking for, the missing person, to build and work in collaboration with all agencies.
Darnell, you were kind of a boots on the ground beat officer, patrol officer for a lot of your career. There's video that I'm going to play in just 1 second, and that is a patrol officer responding to a burglary, and he sees Riley Strain walking. What did your training teach you, just in terms of seeing people, especially young people, in distress? I don't want to pin anything on this officer because he was responding to a call, and at that moment Riley Strain seemed okay, but were you always on the lookout for things that just didn't seem right or didn't seem to fit in? Like if you saw a 6'7" kid by a river late at night alone, would you have stopped there? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm here, Steve. Sorry, Steve. I'm here, Joe. This other guy. No, yeah, Joe,
Steve's the producer.
He's that guy. Yeah, talked to him earlier. So, no, the issue is the burglary in progress. That's a priority run. I mean, you stumble across somebody, or literally they stumble across you. You want to make sure that they're okay, and you have to do your training. But the reality is that if you're headed to a priority call and this person says that they're okay, even though he may have looked a little off, the reality is that you do go to that priority call, as long as that person is not in direct harm's way. And again, that's one of those Monday morning quarterback kind of things that you look at and say, okay, well, yeah, is there something going on with them where, if you see them trying to harm themselves, or if they're not, then you just kind of let them be and you get to that priority call.
Steve, back to you. Just explain a little bit more about, I'm so ignorant to this. What is an ROV? And I guess it's sort of obvious, which would be tragic, but I assume everything up to this point is leading you to believe that it is got to be a water search too, a heavy water search.
It's got to be included, I think. Everything, in search and rescue, everything is based on the last known position of the person. And so everything, starts from there. And, we have the last known position, we have the last seen location, and they happen to be very close in this. We now have the body cam from the officer, and then the last known position is the cell phone ping, which came off of Life 360, which the family gave us really quickly, which showed 50 to 100 feet from the second bridge, south of the head of the second bridge. So now we got both of those points very close proximity to each other, and there's 4 cameras on the other side of the second bridge on that building, on that county building. There's 2 when you're going in the parking garage, and there's 2 mounted higher, and he's not on anything coming out of the second side or the other side of the second bridge. So it looks like something happened. at that bridge, and that's why I think it's critical area to search. A ROV is an underwater drone essentially. It's submersible. It's tethered to various length cords, and that we can see video. Now that river's filthy, so it definitely makes it harder, but
that was my next
hard.
question.
Yeah.
What happens in murky water? Are they usable?
They're usable, but it's just kind of like a human diver too, which makes it a much slower process, and you really got to pinpoint in on areas of probability where you think, we've been looking at the currents in that river and the water depth, which has been changing a lot. The water temperature it's going to change the science of what happens to a body when it enters the water.
What is the water temperature?
Right now it's 58 degrees, between 56 and 58 degrees.
Wow. There's this comment for Steve, and then we'll get to the rest of the panel. Nadia says also, if he's in the water, he could have snagged in branches underwater and near the river bank. So, Steve, what is the sad reality of the possibility that he's in the water? He's just, drugged down underneath.
I think that this is a really important comment. There is in every river in this country, virtually, there is so much stuff in it. And so when a body drowns, it will sink to the bottom. It'll go straight to the bottom, and it's going to then snag. It's going to move along the bottom a lot slower than it will at the surface level currents, but it's going to move until it snags on something. And and I don't want to say I know exactly what happened to Riley. I hope that he's not in the water by some miracle, but if he is, I'll bet you he's within 100 yards of where he went in. I don't think he's far, because there's that much stuff in that river. It's just waiting for the science now to happen.
Wow. But yesterday we had some experts on who calculated that with the current speed, and I don't mean current, I mean the current, the movement of the water, he could be as far as 120 miles downstream, but you think he's close?
He could, yes, and he could go that far if he was unobstructed. I just think there's that much stuff in the river that I think he, being 6'7", is going to make it that, or 6'6", is going to make it that much easier to snag something. And so he could be, now if for somehow he broke, he was able to get through all that debris, that'd be one thing. But that would be on the, that would be most likely on the surface, at first, before the body, bloats, it's going to sit on the bottom, and that's where it's going to snag things. So I think that's a probability, but listen, it could be anything, it's really hard to tell. It's just, if I was running the search, that's where I'd be focusing right now. And
his height, I guess, is a big factor in terms of, there's more area, square area for him to get caught on. You see this graphic. I'm going to read it for those listening. Have you seen or know anything about Riley Strain's whereabouts? Send tips to 615-862-8600, 615-862-8600. Detective, to you, there's a question, and guys, please, and women and men and women, guys is just the way I refer to everyone. But please send us your questions with a triple Q, and we will ask these investigators your questions on the fly. I want to open it up to you guys as well. So, NL Soldier, can someone explain, Dr. Detective, why law enforcement would be focusing on an underwater search, which is what Steve was just talking about, when after 10 days, wouldn't there be a greater chance that someone was floating?
So to speak to that, again, typically we work with the dive teams, which would be our fire department and association or other agencies. So, I can't speak to the science of that, but, you look to proximity, last known location, ping locations, and devices and our bank card that's been found. So you let the evidence lead you, and, near a body of water that size with potential condition of being, inebriated, what have you. I guess we're leaning towards the obvious areas we need to really exhaust all searches for, that being the body of water. So again, speaking to the floating, maybe Steve can address that better in context, but it just depends. There's so many factors and variables there and things that apply.
Let me get here to Darnell from Sweet and Salty. I must have missed it, but does anyone know why his fraternity brothers didn't leave with him? So he was escorted out of the bar, Luke Bryan's bar, with a friend, but that friend decided to stay back. Dwayne Harris coming to us from Detroit, gifting 10 Survivor memberships, and Nikki Cuds, super sticker here. So thank you. But Darnell, to you, college kids, they're bright because they're in college, but sometimes they're boneheads. And these guys left their friend behind, and it could turn out to be, I hope not, but a fatal mistake. What's your advice to young kids? I mean, you're in the Detroit area, a lot of young people go out, they party. What is your advice to these people?
That I'm so glad you asked. That's one of the beauties of the job, the crime and safety hat that I put on for my news channel, is to talk about this. The idea that, we know our friends, and you can't go out with somebody that's not going to be accountable for you. If these are his fraternity brothers, they're brothers. They should be, or serve as such. And regardless, I don't care if he's a 6'7" man or a 5'3" woman. We have to make sure that people are accountable for you. So when you go out with somebody, you got to stay in a group. And I kind of want to piggyback off of what the detective Troy just said. Dr. Detective, make sure I put some respect on your name, brother. Gotcha. The thing about that particular question is that, the evidence doesn't point to a crime. It doesn't mean that it's not being investigated as such, but with that body of water being so close, and it doesn't mean that they're not doing their due diligence to seek that out. Finding a bank card, I'm sure they checked to see if the bank card was used, checked all those types of things, and if there was any inactivity on it. So those things all play a part as to why law enforcement is looking to this. It doesn't mean that that's all they're doing. Doesn't mean that they're not following up and asking other questions. It just means that they're exhausting or sending efforts to this because that's where things are leading mostly. And so obviously, as Steve said too, we hope that we're wrong in that possible assumption. We hope and pray, but it's lending more toward that way. So those are things that are very important. Just making sure you got people, man, that are going to be accountable for you. Whatever you're doing, drinking, what you're drinking, how you're drinking, all you're doing. It's so important to have people in all our circles, even some of us adults.
Yeah. And you can tell Darnell was a good community police officer. That's one of their most important jobs, is being a community leader. Peggy Kenny here, to the doctor, detective. Go across the bridge. It looks wooded. Someone could have robbed him, got him in the vehicle, and taken him elsewhere. I don't think he's in the water. That's Peggy Kenny. Obviously, with all due respect to her, I think Steve Fischer probably has a ton of experience with this. He's leading towards the water. But more broadly speaking, doctor, what do you have to do aside from the water? I mean, you do have to think, could this have been an abduction? Could he have been taken? Is there something more sinister here? And the police said no foul play. That seems like a strong statement. Your take on all that?
Well, again, everything is in play. We do have to exhaust the search of the water. We also have to exhaust all leads, possibilities, and scenarios, right? So that means in a canvassing or recanvass of every area, maybe the additional camera systems or a flock system if that's in play. So everything is relevant to, finding Riley. That's the most important thing, right? So we never rule out anything until we know definitely or definitively, based upon the evidence or signs, like if he's located, which would be best case scenario, and okay, then that's we've still done our due diligence across the board. So everything's in play. So it's not out of the question for a potential robbery or something of that nature. But we have to, again, let the evidence lead us, and then countless interviews. There's no limit to what we can engage with or who we can talk to.
Steve, you really specialize, Steve, in missing persons. How many cases have you had where someone's just vanishes like this for 11 days and then turns up in one piece somewhere? Is it, are the percentages and odds, I assume, are against him right now in the family?
When you get into nature elements like that, or, water, or, whether it be desert or whatever, they go down dramatically. Although, last year, we found, I found a lawyer who had a mental break that was walking from the desert from Los Angeles to Las Vegas for 82 days and found him out in the middle of the desert. So you never know. I mean, it can crazy things can happen. And we literally had a conversation with the family that, in fact, LAPD took him off the missing persons list. They just didn't, we didn't think he was around anymore. And, all of a sudden a lead came in, and outside of Barstow, California, found him in the middle of the desert. So you never know. The problem here, or not the problem, but, the reason that, in our goal, the goal is to find him in whatever state, is to find him and either bring him home or start a process of closure for the family. And there's, you have the officer that we now know that was at the car burglary scene. So if he would have doubled back, we know he didn't come out the other side because there's so many surveillance cameras. He didn't come out the other side of the bridge. If he doubled back, that officer, that body cam, he was there for another 45 minutes, that officer. So I think, they've scrubbed that footage, obviously. So I think they can reasonably say he didn't come back that direction. You got to figure that officer was moving, and you got a lot of coverage over that 45 minutes. And so then the only choice is if he went north, he'd have to go up those steps that go up the bridge. And there's some bail bonds places and stuff right there that have a lot of cameras. Just don't. So we got to go with the most likely probability of detection, which is unfortunately, the water. And, the person that asked earlier about how many days, like it's been 10 days, after 10 days. I'm looking at our, I'm with one of the
Steve, I'm gonna pause you for 1 sec. We're being joined now by Jake Bradley and Jeff. What is your last name?
Sorry, Strain.
Okay, so yours. And just tell me, Jeff, your relationship to the family. Thank you so much for being here.
Riley's my nephew. Michelle
Riley's
is Michelle's my sister.
Your sister. Okay. Are you're Chelsea's father?
I am.
Okay. And is Jake your Chelsea's brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to get that. Thank you so much. So the Strain family is here, and obviously we're thinking of you all. I think Darnell Blackburn was going to jump out here, so I'm going to remove him. You're being joined, Jeff and Jake, by Steve Fischer, who's helping your family with the search. He's based. He's actually been speaking with Chris and other members of the family.
Actually, been speaking with Jeff.
Oh, there you go, Jeff.
Nice,
and there's
nice
Doctor.
Thanks with the text.
Yeah, nice to finally meet you, sir. Thank you for your help.
I'm glad I could help. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. We're reuniting on STS. So I'm glad that you guys are all meeting here. And I just wanted to introduce you as well to Dr. Detective Troy Looney, who's an active police officer who's on the missing persons unit in Akron, Ohio. So, Jeff, Jeff, I saw there was a news conference, kind of an impromptu news conference today that your sister was at. And she's obviously, she was sobbing, obviously having a really hard time. And her husband was upset and is upset about the help the police has been giving up to this point. First off, how are you doing?
Get by. Can't believe it's happening.
And what's So kind of sad and crazy and everything else about this is this could be any family in America, literally any family this could happen to. This is not some sort of isolated incident. This literally could happen to anyone. Jake, again, I'm so sorry you guys are going through this, but Jake, tell me your relationship with Riley, the kind of guy that he is. And I spoke with Chris and Chelsea yesterday, and I said, let's please, be conscious of keeping him in the present tense. Some of us slipped into the past tense yesterday. I think he's still with us. Jake, your relationship with him, tell us the type of person he is.
I think I've explained this to about everybody who asks, and it's probably the most direct way I could put him is I have a little boy, and Riley wants my son to be his best friend. So every time he comes to town or sees him, he brings a new toy. And I can finally say that without breaking down for a moment. I mean, that takes a special human, to especially a 22-year-old boy to think of something like that. Riley's not like what some people probably picture when they picture. I mean, I realize he was out with his friends on Broadway, but it's not your typical painted picture of what type of young man was on Broadway. He's just a nice, kind-hearted, soft-spoken young man.
Sounds like you, Jake. Jeff obviously is rightfully sort of shell-shocked. Are you feeling the same way? How could this happen in my family?
I just think of everything I've ever put myself into, or friends of mine, or people I know, growing up and going through the same, situation. And I can't fathom how, we always made it home. How does this young man, how does our family, somebody who's doing nothing wrong, ever done anything wrong, how does this happen? Yeah, you think the same thing. You think, how does this happen to somebody who's not involved in anything that's, at the time he's not. You could see this in some bad instance where people are looking for somebody or doing something, but this young man's just lost. He's
Jeff, to you, I said this yesterday, not to puff my chest out, but to let you know that we've got your back. We've got about 104,000 subscribers here and about 2.5 million views a month. So what can our community do to help you and your family, Jeff?
Just keep praying. It's all I can say, because we've been there, we've seen what it is, and I'm at a loss for what. It's tough terrain. You can go look, and like we did for 7 days, and we beat the same bushes every day, and there was nothing, so, and then they find the wallet or whatever. Not the wallet, but the credit card. Just keep praying. We're hoping for a positive ending here.
And Jeff, so did you say you were there, boots on the ground, for about 7 days? You were down there?
Yes.
Both of you were there.
Yes.
So tell me, Jeff, tell me what your day was like when you were in Nashville looking for him.
We get up, we answer a whole lot of messages, and then drive downtown and walk the same streets. Jake and I were also the two that got to go out on the airboat with the Jake, correct me, what was it?
American
Was the United States
Airboat
Navy
Rescue.
that helped us get a hold of them, but it wasn't.
American Airboat Rescue is
American Airboat Rescue. We were on the boat with him for 5+ hours on Tuesday, parking along the bank. We parked right there where they found that credit card. We had the boat right there and walked all around that right there. And, I guess we just didn't turn over the right rock.
You did your best. That's for damn sure. Jake and Jeff, I want to also you've got two amazing experts here. I know Jeff, by the way, what about I know this is a super difficult situation, but what about the kindness of people? We always hear about in the news all the negativity, but this is Steve Fischer. This is what he does for a living, and he's doing this basically out of the kindness of his heart. What do you think of that kind of empathy and outreach from the public, particularly people who are skilled at this?
Overwhelming. People that wanted to help. The messages we received were, everybody was wanted the same thing. They want to help find him and do everything they can to do it. But I think Steve was probably one of the first people that reached out to me, or first couple few. It's a blur. It's the fastest 7 days I've ever been anywhere. It was like you blink the eye, the day's over. But there is people that stood out and just did everything they could and are still doing to help us find Riley.
Jake, for you were there as well. What was that experience like for you?
Gives me hope in this world still, the hope I've been losing. We've had families that have taken off work for a week that we don't even know. We've had people like Steve reach out, give something they're paid for to do for free. That's giving their life to somebody else they're not even connected with, to try and help bring a family back together. We've had, I believe we said American Airboat Rescue, spent time with us out of their time. Groups like Voice of the Voiceless who have made flyers, and they're actually one of them who connected us with the United Cajun Navy and spread this word. And I think that's, two ways of helping. You've got people who can give their time because this is something they do, or there's something, unfortunately, they are professional in. And I say unfortunately because nobody truly wants to be doing this right here. And then you have people who know the area, know locals, as far as maybe congressmen or district. I'm losing my words, but anyway, connected with the community in ways to get us outreach and help. And then you also have people that are good with social media, and that's another avenue of help. Getting this word out and keeping it on top of everything is just as important as walking through the rocks to find something.
And Jeff, there's from Rosie Woods, a member of our community, is the family, meaning you, feeling that a lot of false information is being put out there. Anything that STS Nation could do to help clear up, or do you need? I know I tweeted out and on Instagram put out at Surviving the Survivor on Instagram, at Podcast STS on Twitter. I put out a bunch of photos that Chelsea gave me. Is there anything that you'd like us to circulate, or anything you'd like us to do?
Jake, you're probably going to have to help that one.
As far as false information, there's, no information we've been sent have we just thrown to the side and not shared with either the detectives or looked into ourselves to verify. We know there's tons of people out there that want to help, where they look through the video and they think they see something you don't, and that's great. But you're constantly getting screenshots of a video, or somebody sees something, or somebody thinks they see something. I've even recently had someone send something to me that we had already verified, and I appreciated it, and they kept hammering me, telling me, no, I'm wrong. They see it. And I was, it's tough because I know they care too. I'm sure that's why they're doing it. They obviously feel some connection and want to share, and it's hard, but we do look through. When we were in Nashville, we'd spend a couple hours a day weeding through information that had been sent to us all morning and or in the middle of the night. And it's just, it reinvents the wheel too. It's hard. It's hard to think about, put yourself in that situation.
Well, Chris Dingman seems like a great guy to have in your court because he's organized and
Very
he was fired.
valuable family friends.
Yeah, and he's going down there. He said tomorrow. To the investigator, if you guys have any questions, Jake or Jeff, for the investigators, just hop right in. Please, this is a forum for you guys, more so than anyone else. But Steve, to you, and I think a couple of the biggest keys here, obviously the phone. Can someone talk about Riley's iPhone, Steve? Yesterday, Chris said it was powered off. Could it have been submerged for a period of time before losing power? Do we know?
Just real quickly, I want to say, both of you, I know we've been talking mostly by text. I deal with this every day. Still can't imagine what it's like to be a family member going through this. And this really is kind of a model how it should be done. Your whole family is keeping his name out there, giving information, not closing down like a lot of times the detectives will ask you to do. This is how you find somebody. And there's a whole, I know he mentioned that like me donating my time I'm in a whole network of people. It's not just me. There's literally 1,000 people, behind me that I'm just kind of speaking for that are all doing that too. And we're all want to find Riley. So, as far as the cell phone goes, I think, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but what I've heard is that the phone and the watch power down or stop pinging around the same time, and phones or any cell device can't transmit through water. That's one thing, that it only transmit a few inches. So the fact that they went off at the same time is a little concerning. I want to be sensitive about saying that, but I think the family knows that can be a reality.
Talks about a lot every day.
Yeah,
the phone, the pinging of the phone, and the signal losing it, being gone at this, like it was shut off, and
it's tragic. As we were saying before you both came on, I hope that it's some miracle that some head injury, some concussion, something, and he's out there. God, we hope that's what it is, but we gotta explore everything, so
yes.
that's just the reality of the cell phone. Could he have been robbed and a person saw that cop and then dumped the stuff? Could be. So, but as far as cell signal goes, they can't transmit through water. So even though the phone itself would be waterproof, it wouldn't be able to transmit, so you wouldn't pick up a ping anymore. And the same would go for the watch if it was sending a signal.
Yeah, and the
That's
the
kind of what I
Apple,
thought, but no one's answered that to us.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And Steve, correct me, but I think the Apple Watch, some of the parts of the Apple Watch were not enabled that would help track him. Is that right, Steve?
I don't know for certain.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, location was off, and it was just connected via Bluetooth, as far as we know. They're digging. I think they're still looking into more of that.
Still looking into that. Dr. Detective from Nancy D, if he fell down this steep hill, wouldn't his clothes catch on some debris, not necessarily just end up in the water? How would you know the other, Doctor?
Okay, so again, to both gentlemen, again, we're praying for you, with you, and just adding, from our experience. So as far as clothing, I mean, fibers, DNA, things of that nature, it just depends on the terrain, depends on the type of material, a lot of different factors there. So, and to, comb through that area with a fine, caliber of forensics and everything else, it just depends on the scenario. Not every scenario and situation is all the same. But it just depends. It's not a bad idea to check the stairs or the area there, especially the areas identified on video. I think everything's in play, to look everywhere, again, to look at the forensics and adding to the phone elements as well. Maybe they were turned off. If that would be the case, if they're reactivated, maybe they can track different components such as MAC addresses, that are unique to each device, or maybe even IP. It just depends on the scenario. So, but again, everything's in play, and the forensics unfortunately take a little bit longer to engage with downloads and sending out subpoenas and getting the information back from different entities. So, again, I'm sure they're working in that capacity as well.
And for Jeff and Jake who don't know, he is Dr. Detective Troy Looney because he's got a Ph.D. as well as being a detective. So you get extra sauce with Detective Troy Looney. Steve Fischer, if you had your druthers, and obviously there's manpower and organization and all that, but Annie K is asking, apart from media, are volunteer searchers being gathered and organized farther afield? If you could, how big a search area would you want right now, Steve, if you were running the search?
So what we do is, but virtually every SAR team in the world we use a model called lost person behavior, developed by Dr. Robert Coster with the Department of Justice, and these are models that take tens or hundreds of thousands of search and rescue missions and different elements of them, water-based, person drinking, in a city, and because you'd be amazed how many repeating patterns there are. And we use these models and we build out a 25%, 50, 75, and 100% circumference circles, and the model build them and based on 25% chance probability of detection, then 50, 75, and it goes further and further out. And what we do is we'll load up the 25% zone, although it's been 10 days. So at this point, I'd probably, from the 50% in, I would saturate it with, people that are specialized, that are certified for water, and then have land-based searchers too. And as far as the volunteer element goes, bring them in. It would be my, get them in as long as we have them in safe environments and people are not becoming victims themselves, so as long as people are aware of their surroundings and not pressing their own personal limits, there's no reason to say, oh, you have to be a professional, SAR team member. For the first day or two in certain areas, I agree with that. But other than that, I say get eyeballs out there, get people out there. Just don't, be rappelling down, walls and stuff like that. But bring them in. Get the thermal drones, get the underwater ROVs. And have keep it coordinated. Have everybody running the SAR Topo app, which is free, and it can keep track of everybody and show their search lines, and so the search coordinators can then see everything that's been searched and expand the search out from there, as needed. And then of course it's always shifting with intelligence, as new surveillance might come in or something that appears to be a really good lead, and then you can target those areas. So I think that's what I would be doing. I know one question I do have for you guys is that after that second bridge, that county building, I know that I have a copy of the surveillance from the camera from when the vehicles are going in the underground garage, but there's also 2 cameras up on that building. Has those been checked? Have you guys seen those that he definitely did not come out this other side of the bridge, continue walking down Gay Street?
The only camera we have seen is from the be like the keypad check-in to one of the building or the doors under the building, like the garage area.
Yeah.
We've seen the camera on the keypad that faces in the northern direction.
That's what I'm talking about. But you haven't seen, there's 4 other cameras on that building. They haven't shown you those, huh?
I believe we were told that those point more straight down. I have not seen those, so I couldn't verify that. But there's 4 on the back and 1 on each side.
Yeah.
And I believe possibly one of them catches the stairs that's on that northern side of the bridge. And
They've
they
even
said,
got a warning sign there. It says this is under police surveillance, because of those cameras. I was kind of surprised that, and I've asked about them to law enforcement, but nobody seemed to answer that question. So I didn't know if there's something with
yeah,
those cameras
they
or
did
not.
say they checked the video footage from top of the red stairs, if you're familiar with the area,
Yeah.
and said he never came up that way. But as
Okay.
far as any other cameras that come off the back of that sheriff's building or whatever it be, I believe they said they didn't reach all the way to the sidewalk, but I could be getting that confused. But we have not seen any footage from them.
Straight down
Okay.
or straight, just the angle to watch around the perimeter of the building.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Steve, I'm curious. Do you know all this about the cameras just from using Google Earth, or you have intel on the ground there that's telling you this?
No. Well, I do know a lot of it from Google Earth, but that's like I was talking about where I'm in this network of people, over the last couple of days. Like, for instance, when I had people, go specifically drive and look for those cameras, and I had somebody go over and was trying to get surveillance from the Marathon Oil, plan that we talked about, and but I couldn't get a number for them to even figure out who their security team is. So I had somebody drove over there, somebody from Twitter that's in this missing persons community that just want to help. They went over there and they got a number off an emergency sign for me. So
Wow.
it's people that do stuff like that you never hear about, but are huge parts of this. Another woman's found random, essentially body cam footage of somebody coming down the steps where exactly we were talking about by the sheriff's building at 2:00 in the morning, and so you can see everybody under the bridge because it started raining, the homeless that were there, and so people do stuff like that, and it's pretty amazing what you can collect as a community.
That's I said it yesterday. The good part about social media is it connects people. And this is fascinating to me because you've got two members of a family searching for their loved one, talking to experts in the field in real time, trying to figure out where Riley Strain is. These two questions are for the family. Jake, from Reality Wins, a lot of questions about his shirt, whether his shirt was on or off, whether a homeless person ever got a hold of it. Any answers on that?
No, I've been contacted actually by the generator of that story a couple different times about somebody else wearing the shirt. There's nothing else with that we know of yet. I mean, he did turn that in to the detectives or the police. I apologize, some local police officers that were nearby, and they were going to look into it. That's all we know as far as the shirt. We did hear there was another lead on somebody else wearing the shirt, but he had a jacket over it, and it was really bright white. I don't know, that shirt wasn't really bright white. It was kind of more of a beigeish off-white and black, but if somebody was filthy clothes on was wearing it, it might look really bright white under their filthy clothes. So
yeah, that is the shirt we're looking at that he was wearing that night, kind of a two-tone black and beige-ish with that black pocket. Shout out to Mind of Monsters, who's on top of a lot of big stories and is actually the one that's been helping Steve, from what I gathered from the comments. So
yes,
huge shout out to Mind of Monsters, who's in our chat right now. Jeff, this comment, there's a lot of talk about this too. A lot of talk about one drink and two waters. That's apparently all he had while he was in Luke Bryan's bar. They want to know, did he only have this one alcoholic beverage? There's been a lot of talk, and I don't want to stir up conspiracy or controversy, but there has been a lot of talk about an issue in Nashville with people getting their drinks spiked. Anything further as it pertains to that, Jeff?
We've heard a bunch of comments to that effect about spiking of drinks, and according to the tab, it was one drink and two waters at the Luke Bryan bar. I know I can't say that what he had beforehand. I know they were at a couple other places before they were there, but there's no way for us to know that.
And Jake, back to you from Samantha. This kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. Do you know of any reporting being confirmed of him vomiting over one of the bridges and then possibly leaving a shirt, which you kind of addressed the shirt. But what about the vomiting?
No word that we know of. And we did, while scouting the area on Tuesday, we weren't looking for small items. We were looking for clothing, boots, a body of something. So I think, just as the detective said with their SARS team originally, but I will say we did look for any sort of vomit along it's not just a railing, like there's a wall. We did look on the ground up top. We didn't notice anything, not to say we wouldn't have missed anything, but we've not heard any definite answer from footage. I don't believe they have any signs of him getting sick in camera footage.
Skate Mom says that you guys didn't find any blood, anything like that closer. No. Okay, so there's no DNA. Sherry Davis chiming in here. Certainly had an updated watch, as he had an iPhone 15 Max. The watch absolutely works underwater, but the location on that watch was never turned on. That's the problem. But Steve, would they be getting some sort of pings off of that watch? Here's another person saying that the watch is waterproof. If the watch was on for, let's say, another day or so, or 2 days before the battery died, would there have been pings coming from underneath the water?
So the watch itself is waterproof. The phone's waterproof. The problem is the cell signal, which is sending the location information, cannot go through water, and Bluetooth signals can't go through water. So those are the ones that we need to get the location. So yes, they would have worked under there, but they're not going to transmit their location data, which is what we needed. It wasn't so much knowing if they were on or off. I mean, of course that was important too, but it wasn't. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for location, and the location data that I got at least was through Life 360. I think that's where you guys disclosed it from, and so that it needs a signal to transmit that data. Unfortunately, once you get in about 4 to 6 inches of water, that's about as far as water's very effective at swallowing those radio waves.
Pat Ferguson, this is actually a really good question. Everyone assumes that he was kicked out of the bar for being too drunk. He was asked to leave. Did you ever get, Jake, a definitive reason? It could have been something else. I don't know. Maybe he was too tall and his head was hitting a bulb. Who knows? Did you ever get an exact reason as to why he was asked to leave?
Yeah, I think it was said that he was overserved and possibly trying to pay a tab or something that he didn't have, or something like that, maybe.
Okay. So there is some sound from Jeff's sister, who is Riley's mother. I'm going to play that in 1 second, but just back to the doctor here, Dr. Detective Troy Looney. We talked about the phone, we talked about the Apple Watch, but obviously another very significant piece of potential evidence is this credit card. I found out yesterday he had a Michael Kors watch. Chelsea, Jake's sister, described it, and he kept it in a wallet, which means he had to take it out of a wallet, which led some people yesterday to believe maybe someone pickpocketed him, took that wallet, and then dropped the credit card. What do you do with your experience? What do you do with that information that this single credit card dropped from his wallet?
So again, thank you. Excellent question. A couple things come to mind. So actually the data, these are all, we're talking about data sources essentially, right? So whether it be the watch, the phone, or the bank credit card, we're going to send search authorities subpoenas and so forth to find out if there's been any activity, whether there was activity or not. If that was inside a wallet, where's the wallet, or was that done intentionally? Now, another important thing to remember also, with all the volunteers and all the support and help of everyone searching, it is imperative that when things are found, not to move them, but have someone stay with the items, watch the items, get law enforcement so it can be preserved for collection properly. Because, I'm not saying that is the case, but, we only get one chance for DNA, or we don't want that compromised as a result. So we would actually send out search authority subpoenas to the institution or credit card company, and then also request details, transaction history, place of usage, maybe ATM, if that is the case, or place of last usage. That also can tell us, were there drinks purchased? Was there anyone else that may have, was there an open tab or not, right? So those things are all relevant, and that could come out in the interviews, or the portion of interviews at the bar with friends and associates, maybe even the bartender.
Yeah, and Steve can probably pick up on this, but Steve, as far as I know, there has been no activity on that particular card, either before it was found or since it was found. And I think Jeff is shaking his head yes. From Hey, it's Jay, and you can respond to that, Steve. But also, if he fell in the water with his phone and his watch on him, is there a way you can locate those devices with technology the same way folks use metal detectors on land? Is there a technological way to hone in on those devices?
Well, so the new iPhones actually do have the SOS feature where we get the beacon search and rescue. It'll be forwarded to us through Apple has a center, but it has to be activated by the person, or hard fall detection can do that too. Those didn't. I know I asked specifically about the hard fall detection, and they said that did not happen. But other than that, yeah, metal detectors, things like that. The problem is there's just a lot of junk in that river, so you get a lot of signals. You have to have somebody really diligent. And this is what happens with search. It can be a lot of time and stuff. I just don't know right now if a crime happened. Riley will tell that story, right? He'll be able to start that process, and then we can look for all the smaller items such as the phone, because we know that's off now, so it's not really going to help us. But that would be an important piece of evidence. But I know that. Listen, I'm the first one to call out when things need to be ramped up by law enforcement. Sometimes they slack, but I know they've been getting a lot of grief because civilians found the debit card. But in these missing person cases, they're doing what's called hasty searches. We're looking for the person. We're not looking for small items, clues, and stuff like that. We're spreading teams out and covering more area over a time. And then if it becomes a criminal case, then we do line searches and stuff, and that's where we literally will line up arm's length apart, and you face down, and you're searching every inch of the ground for evidence. But this wasn't an evidence search so them missing the card is not a big deal. It doesn't mean that they weren't trying or anything. They're looking for Riley. They weren't looking for his phone. They weren't looking for any of that. They knew that was the area of interest, and they're working that zone, and they want to cover as much area as quickly as possible, because if the person's alive in that zone, you got to find them. So I don't fault them for it, and I'm very glad civilians came in and helped and found that. It's a huge help, but law enforcement didn't drop the ball on that one.
Yeah. So Jeff, to that point, your family's been fairly vocal that the police have not been doing enough in Nashville. Is that how you're feeling right now? It's got to be super frustrating, but do you fault the police?
I don't know that I can fault them. I mean, they're following their rules. I assume. We all know what assume does, but
I believe in the interview today in the press conference, they said they were happy with what they had been given today, and that the detectives, we're family, so we're always going to think nobody's doing enough.
Yeah.
And I want to just point out, I'm talking specifically about that debit card, because I brought up, listen, I'm so frustrated. I've been dealing with Jeff on this surveillance, the Marathon plant, right? Literally their barge dock you could throw a rock at it from where that phone pinged. And when I got the hold of the head of security in Ohio, nobody from law enforcement has yet been in contact with them. And the same with the Tennessee Titans. I don't understand, like, every piece of video should have been requested, pulled, everything. And then, so, we were in the process of getting it for Marathon, and I let the detective know, and now that's kind of gotten held up. So I'm not saying that, I'm not frustrated with, and more could be done, because it could, and I am frustrated with the surveillance element, and that's why I specifically asked if you guys have heard anything about those cameras on that county building, because those seems like they should have picked something up. Maybe they are pointed straight down, but they should be getting surveillance from Marathon and others on that riverbank, because those businesses have to guard against threats coming from the river, from people coming on a boat and entering their. So they have cameras pointed literally where the area of interest.
Yeah, I'll make this analogy. My dad passed away 89, almost 90, and people say, well, he lived such a long life. It's never long enough when you're the son or the wife, and it's never enough if your child is missing. Here's the press conference. We have 2 sound bites from earlier today. Let's take a listen. This is Chris Whited and Michelle, who is Jeff's sister, is in the background. That is Riley's mother and his stepfather.
Reached out to, and we've spoken with Dave with the United Cajun Navy. We feel that we need the extra resources to come in and help us as we try to get more organized for our family and see if we can't bring some more clues to light. We're very grateful for everyone that's done everything so far. We ask that you continue. We ask that you work and help with us to become more organized, because we don't want individuals out there alone without us knowing, so that we want to make sure everybody's careful. Safety is the number one priority. We appreciate more than you'll ever know the outpouring that we've received from the community, from the press, and everyone else involved. Our goal is still to bring Riley home. We feel that is still a very pliable goal. We feel like Dave and his team and the volunteers that he knows are very skilled and will help bring this for us.
And you can see the pain there. Jeff, that's got to be really difficult just to watch. I'm curious if you're willing to share, how often are you talking to your sister? What are you telling her? You've got to be, I don't know if you're the big brother or the younger brother, but you got to be a big support to her.
My communication with her is by text, because I don't think I can talk to her. I don't want to upset her any more than she already is, so it's just easier for me to text her and tell her what I'm thinking or feeling.
This is
right or wrong. That's just how I feel like I can handle it.
I think however you're feeling is the right way. Jake, it's so painful to just watch Jeff and watch his sister deal with this in real time. Jake, the Cajun Navy, I didn't really know much about them, but they stepped up during Hurricane Katrina, and they're all over the country leading these search efforts. How important is it to have them have your back in this right now, Jake?
Well, I think it's huge. I believe I've been in contact with David Flagg from the United Cajun Navy since the night of the 10th or the morning of the 11th. Like I said, he's who got us in contact with American Airboat Rescue, and we immediately got Gary with American Airboat Rescue immediately got with us. We got on the water the next day, and we're on the bank within 30 minutes. We spent 15 miles of river. I mean, to me, that's huge. Obviously, we didn't find anything yet, but the more of that we can get, I feel like the better chance we're going to have to finding Riley.
I want to play this video. This is the body cam footage, Doctor, to you. This is a beat officer going to check on a burglary. This is the video where he encounters Riley. We'll play it plays and then it slows up on Riley, and just want to get your take on this, Doctor. Unmute after the bite. Here we go. That's the car that was broken into, the red truck.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You'll see it back. That was obviously Riley. We're going to slow it down in a moment.
It was over here on Gay Street, near First Avenue.
That's a different clip. The other one had the Dr. Detective. I mean, that's a patrol officer going to check on a broken-in truck. He obviously came across Riley, just said hello. I'm sure he's second-guessing himself, but should that have played out any differently, in your opinion?
Excuse me. Again, I think Darnell mentioned, being a higher priority call burglary and not being aware of Riley being in potential danger. The fact that Riley engaged him and he did inquire, "How are you?" He said, "Good." It may not have been on his radar initially, obviously with the burglary call, the broken window. When I initially watched that, I thought I noticed the broken window of that vehicle. So again, a couple things come to mind. The owner of the vehicle, who made the call, are there any additional cameras in the area of that pathway or the direction of travel for Riley? Again, surveillance is paramount, right? And then what the caller actually stated when they called in or made the call. Did they observe anything else? So it never hurts to have an initial interview and then re-interview parties for additional memory. People remember things differently at different times, or they may not have known what could have been relevant at the time, seeing the young man walking. They may have seen some other activity or something, any clue that can help. So again, additional canvassing and surveillance is going to be helpful. But I did notice that broken window at the time. So my first thought was, why was the officer there? When I heard of the other comments that were made, it's hindsight, it's 2020, but I'm sure the officer's thinking about that. And again, it wouldn't hurt. I've had success in other cases where I go back 3 or 4 weeks later and just re-interview people. And you'll be surprised what you may uncover or other details they may not have thought about to share.
Yeah. And doctor, how did they even know to look at this body cam footage? Do you think this patrol officer, obviously when this case got as big as it did, said, "Hey, I think I saw this kid," and then went back? How would they even know to look for this?
Absolutely. I'm sure at the time when, with the reporting and the actual call, the officer would remember anyone in the area. I mean, he's there investigating a car break-in, so that may have been of interest. And with the description and the height, definitely stands out, being a taller individual by Riley. So that would have been easy to remember with his height. And, there was a pleasant greeting back and forth in exchange. So
little
I'm sure that
being
officer
a little
could,
disoriented.
Sorry about
remember.
that, Troy.
No
Yeah.
problem.
I just wanted to play this video for the family. This picks up a little later, but Jeff and Jake, at one point we know that he hits his head. Jake right there, this is where he kind of slips and hits his head on this pole. Jake, do you have any thoughts about this video? There are some people who believe maybe he was being chased, maybe he wasn't. Do you have a thought one way or the other?
I spoke with the parents who got to watch the footage from the PD, and they said in the previous videos from 3rd Street before he turns onto Church, there's nobody looks to be chasing him, nothing going on the corner that makes them believe he would want to be running. And then he trips and falls. I've personally been to that signpost or light post, wherever you want to call it, and there's not even a sign, like no blood, nothing on that post. that would indicate, he hit it.
Yeah, and I just paused it here because of the difficult terrain. It's steeper, deeper, wider, the river than anyone really thinks. So there's a big job, obviously, for the people searching. Steve, to you, people have been asking, and then I want to play one more soundbite, and then we'll start to wrap because I know Jeff and Jake have more important things to deal with at this point. But Steve, to you, people have been asking about video from inside the bar. Has that been accessed? I assume police have that. I'm sure you probably haven't seen it, but do we know if police are looking at that?
Certainly they have. I know I was on a show earlier today, and Chris was on that. And he said that the family, I guess, was brought to precinct and shown basically all the footage that they have, and so that has been scrubbed. And I know there's been talks of investigations and stuff like that with the Liquor Bureau. I'm sure that's going to happen. I'm sure that's ongoing, and that'll all be on there. As far as from a search and rescue point of view, we only care about the last position, or maybe the one before that. One thing that I would be curious about is, when we see that footage of him walking there at First and Gay, and there's like a road closed sign or whatever behind the barriers behind him, and there's some people where he does that 360. That's what we'd call a decision point. And so to me, it seems like he may be starting to realize he's lost, but he's going to follow the group of people because just human nature, you're going to think, okay, I'm going to end up, in a place where I'm supposed to be. I would be curious, and let me be very clear. I'm not talking about these people having anything to do with anything. I'd just be curious to see, where they were parked and to see, because I'm sure then that's when he kind of got left on his own and then had to make those decisions. Do I go to the bridge, or was he already to the point where he had to go to the bridge to get the steps up? So because I do think that he kind of looks around, and I think he just followed those people just out of safety in numbers type of thing. Not that he was scared, but it's just human nature, and especially if you're intoxicated. And listen, I've been in college, I've been there enough times that I'm not saying that there's anything with those people. I'm just saying it'd be curious to know, if they were parked right there, and then we maybe get a better mindset. But those are really the only locations that we care about as far as finding, the person goes.
And Dr. Detective, to you, this is more your wheelhouse. What are police doing today? This 11 days out. I mean, they had to have looked at the video from inside the bar. What other sorts of things are they looking at behind the scenes that we may not be even thinking about?
Thank you. So again, what comes to mind with the video surveillance inside the bar, locating the individuals that were present, getting statements from the parties present. Also, I would actually go back to the homeless camps. There were several mentions of potential leads of maybe someone wearing a shirt or someone that may have observed him. So I'm sure they're trying to identify and locate those individuals, but also not knowing the geographical landscape, but how many homeless camps, if any, are there present or around. That's a potential a possibility. Everything is a possibility at this point. So again, that's a certain network, or I guess essentially a different type of network and lifestyle. So someone should be immersed in that, and those interviews and talking with those individuals, maybe a special detail, right? So everything's in play at this point. Again, waiting for the technology and the video surveillance, but again, recanvassing, again, searching of social media, and maybe even backtracking before this incident to look at the communications and so forth. I believe there was a mention of a text message, but even going back further, right, to maybe talk about a place they may have been planning to go after that bar location.
A good point. See, I wouldn't have thought of that, where he was planning to go afterwards. Jake, to you, and the Dr. Detective just mentioned it, this last text message, This came from Chris spoke to News Nation, Chris Dingman. He was texting with a young woman, and he wrote back to her, "Good lops," LOPS. Have you figured out? Do we know what that is in reference to, or what that means?
No, I've reached out and asked around if anybody would have a possible idea, and no clue. I don't know if he was trying to say good night, or I've typed lops into my phone enough now that it thinks it's a word and it doesn't reject it. So I don't even remember if it rejected it the first time I tried it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we don't.
and Michelle, his mother, said she didn't even really know who this young woman is. But the bigger question to you, Jake, and we talked about this yesterday with Chris and Chelsea. I mean, Riley was really not like the crazy party guy, doing a million shots. He wasn't that guy, right?
No, I mean, he was having fun with his buddies and they like to have some drinks. But I mean, as far as party heavy in my mind, no. Some people out there probably think, well, yeah, that's partying regardless. Partying heavy in my mind, I would not call him that.
Yeah. Karen wants to know, Jeff, was Riley familiar with Nashville? Do you believe, Jeff, that he was lost when he was on Gay Street?
I want to say yes, that he was lost. He just kept going. I mean, there was no reason to keep going that way. The place he was staying at should have been lit up really good all the way from leaving the bar to walking in the front door. And when he got to where it was dark like that, I would have thought he would have known better. As far as knowing Nashville, I know they were there last year for this same whatever the was
Formal.
And
Steve, to you, then one more bite and we'll get some final thoughts here. Riley seemed to be walking with purpose. Does anyone know where he was going? Obviously we don't, because we would be looking for him there. He's not heading in the direction of the hotel. But what about this notion? He doesn't seem to be kind of like stopping and trying to he's walking very intentionally most of the time. What do you make of that?
I don't know if there's too much like I can make out. I could just a person that's 6'6" is going to have a long stride anyways, and probably going to look like they're walking with purpose no matter what. But I don't know if there's too much to read in that, just because he does do that 360. That's kind of a sign there. That's not an intoxicated, catching your balance thing. That's he's looking around trying to figure, wait, is it that building or that building? He probably at that point, like I said, knows he's on the wrong path, but maybe is following those people, and he figures that'll, the bridge, you'll see the stairs and stuff. So, maybe he was just following them and then they got in their car, and then he was heading towards the stairs or something. It's hard to say. It does look like purpose. I was surprised. I will say I'm a little surprised he didn't ask the cop for directions. But then, if you're a young kid and you're like had a few drinks and you're like, oh, let that be. I'll ask somebody else. So again, I've been there 100 times. So I get that thought process, but it's hard to say, to get into that exact mindset. I just feel horrible for this whole situation.
This is an odd name, no doubt, Daddy Short Nuts, but so everyone knows, his son gave him that name. Well, it wasn't his wife, so that's a good thing. His young son gave him that name. Dr. Detective, where was the hotel in relation to his movement? This is a bigger question for you here. He leaves the bar and goes in the wrong direction, but does he ever try to go to the hotel? Why not use phone directions to find the hotel? Was he panicking and lost? I mean, when you're investigating a case like this, and I know you did many times, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, are you asking yourself all these questions and additional questions, trying to get inside his mind that night?
Absolutely. So a couple things I noticed about the video. Walking when he was near the group of young ladies or a mixed company, I noticed it appeared he looked at his phone at one point. So whether he was trying to get navigation or looking or trying to make a communication through Bluetooth, That came to mind and stood out for me. So definitely, yeah, this part right here, it appears he looked at his phone, I think the previous video, but
I think he
and it
does
may
it
have been
right
some
here.
other source site, right? He looks at the phone briefly.
Yeah, it was right there. Yeah.
And of course, with that fall and maybe even hitting his head potentially, definitely been disoriented after that. I know it took a while, a few seconds to get up. So that couldn't have felt good at all, I'm sure. But yeah, definitely, you're trying to find some kind of, landmark or just remember where you were, and well, that could create some potential panic. Just we'll never know what's right now until we talk with them, right? To just say, hey, I felt dizzy or took a pretty hard fall, so that could factor in too.
For sure. This is one last soundbite from today's kind of impromptu, not so impromptu press conference, and then we'll get some final thoughts.
It's hard as a parent, as we are now 10, 11, 12 days into this, and we're trying to, find Riley, come up with, an outcome here. And so, yes, as the days drag on, we are frustrated. We know they're doing their job. We've seen what they've got.
It's got to be super frustrating. Apologies, that audio is a little low. Steve, in these cases, do you find that a reward helps with the search process?
I'm not a big fan of rewards. If there is a reward, I like it to go through Crime Stoppers. Rewards, I only do missing person cases, so I deal with them a lot. And when they come out, the family immediately starts getting bombarded with extortion demands from scammers. It's a lot of times there's multiple people claim rewards don't get paid. I think they muddy the waters. If something nefarious happened and somebody knows, chances are the person's not going to come. Somebody's not going to roll on them anyways. If look at the Harmony Montgomery case, it was a couple $100,000, and nobody ever came forward in that, and those were homeless people. So I don't like them. But if you do now, Crime Stoppers will put them up. That's a whole different thing, because everything goes through Crime Stoppers. It's anonymous. They pay it. They do that. I'm for. But private ones, I'm not a huge fan of. A lot of people swear by them though, so that's just my personal opinion.
This is one of our community members who is local, Allie B from Tennessee, and she shot this just to give you an idea how dark it is. I'm sure it's much darker when you're there, but thanks to Allie B from Tennessee for that. There's a question here, Steve, and then we'll wrap up, I promise. Is there a contact for volunteering? I'm local. I just mentioned Allie B. She's local. I know Mind of Monsters is local, or I don't know if she's local, but I know she went down there to help. But Steve, is there contact if you want to help with the volunteer process?
I saw today a social media post come out from Cajun
Navy,
Army, or what?
Cajun Navy.
Yeah,
Cajun
where they
Navy.
said they gave a number for volunteers. So everything should go through them. It's incredibly important to have an incident command structure, so everything's going through one thing. So I would say that's who the family wants it, has chosen to keep them as that, and that's going to keep everybody safe.
And I'll look for that on Twitter. I'm sorry, did one of you want to add?
I believe they also put the email as info@unitedcajunnavy.org, or reach out to them on social media on Facebook.
info@unitedcajunnavy.org. info@unitedcajunnavy. And I have the GoFundMe information in yesterday's show, and I'll put it into today's show summary. Forever Curious says, according to my 19-year-old, lops in text chat can mean low on power. Sorry, that's interesting. Didn't know that, but there's lingo for everything. Dr. Detective Troy Looney, Ph.D., began his career in Akron, Ohio, and is still active with the Akron Police Department. He began in 1992, 2024. You guys can do the math. He's still there, and he worked missing persons for some of his time at the Akron PD. Dr. Detective, your final thoughts today.
Again, first thoughts are prayer and diligence and persistence. So, I like to think optimistic. So I always lean on the side of, there's no, it's limitless to the effort we can pursue and the volunteers we can, that can take part in this. So support is always welcome. And let's just continue to think on the positive side of locating Riley, right? That's how I like to think. And moving forward, again, all assistance, I like what Steve said about having a central location so the information kind of flows to a centralized location. The thing about the case integrity also, it's difficult for law enforcement to share everything, but I'm glad they sat down with the family to at least bring you up to speed of where they are. It's difficult when, media wants to know. I understand. Everyone wants to know, where are you? What do you have? But, if there is some foul play or someone, they're also watching. So you have to really be careful, and you don't want to jeopardize credible evidence or the integrity of the evidence. So again, just hope to find them safe.
Well said. Again, Samantha saying Lops low on power. Sorry is what it could mean. I want to also thank former Auburn Hills police officer and WDIV Local 4 in Detroit, Darnell Blackburn, Officer Darnell Blackburn. He was on and jumped off when the family came in. Of course, Steve Fischer is doing incredible work, based out of California, a private investigator who is looking into this case for free. And then just hearing him speak today, and I hope to have him back on this week to get more updates. But just hearing him talk, you can tell what is signed. We see it on TV all the time about these searches, but there's a real method to the madness. There's a real science behind it. And I'm glad that Steve is working with the family, because he sounds for sure like he knows exactly what he's doing. And I think it's good to have him on their team. Dwayne Harris, the guy is too generous, a super sticker. But Steve Fischer, your final thoughts. What are your next steps in regards to this investigation?
Keep the search going, keep the volunteers out there. Stuff like this, like you just saw from the community, that low on power. Sorry. That makes sense. I can tell why he wasn't using Google Maps. Maybe why some of these things, why he didn't rely on the phone. I mean, here we go. Here it just shows the power of these communities. We can find answers like this. That makes a lot of sense to me. That could very well be what he was saying. It's hard to say. This is remarkable. It sounds like a remarkable young man that we're looking for. I've gotten so many DMs from his friends and classmates and stuff saying, please find him. And I was on a show earlier today, and Chris said it was okay to share this, but he talked about how Riley was messaging or talking with this young woman, and he said that how he brought up that he thought she was so amazing, but the only person who was more amazing was his mom, and he talked about how much he loved his mom, and so that's the kind of kid we're looking for, and we got to find him. And I think it's amazing how everybody's rallied together, and I hope we keep that going.
And Steve, is there a way that the community can help you specifically?
I mean, I'm really only on Twitter at SF_investigates. If you have info you want to share with me instead of law enforcement, I will get it to law enforcement. I'll get it to the family. If the most, as far
it's
as
funny because
search Cajun,
I didn't mean I don't mean to cut you off, but I follow you religiously. I just didn't know that was you till just now. So
oh really? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll tweet and retweet you as well.
But everything, people that want to volunteer and stuff like that, it's critical to keep that incident command structure go through the Cajun Navy, and get out there, help if you can. If you can just help online, it shows what a big help it is. Just I think maybe we got an answer on that LOPS thing. So, and I just want to say, the family, I really feel this is a model for how missing person cases should be handled. Get information out there, let people be involved. You guys are doing great, and I'm so sorry you're going through this. And if I can do anything, call me 24/7.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is shows you there are good, for all the bad we hear about, there are much more good and a lot of great people. And Steve is obviously one of them. Just a reminder, in a half hour, we're doing a second show on Maddie Soto with some amazing guests. That's at the top of the hour. So please join us for that. Final word, of course, goes to the family. Jake, I know you're suffering, as is Jeff, but what would you like to share with the community before you say goodbye?
Just keep sharing the message, keep sharing, keep his face in front of everything. I feel as if we keep things like this going, and the news, media, TV, internet, social media platforms, the just more it presses this case. Not that anybody would let off of the gas, but it just keeps it going full bore, and it keeps more eyes on it. So maybe somebody else will catch something that somebody else doesn't.
Well said. And Jeff, please send our thoughts to Michelle. I know you're just texting right now. Hopefully you guys will all have a big family reunion with her smiling and not crying. I know this is brutal on you, so know that there are a ton of people out there supporting you guys. And the floor is yours for a final thought.
Same as Jake, just keep the word out there, keep the picture in front of you, and move forward. Keep praying to bring Riley home. We love him and we want him back. Yeah. Sorry.
Nothing to be sorry about. Nothing to be sorry about.
No, Jake, I was going to have a hard time with this. The reason I haven't been talking. I was there the day he was born, and it just kills me right now.
Listen, if there's anything we can do, and I think one of the most important things is you gotta lean on Jake and lean on your other family members. Hey, I'm the son of a psychiatrist and a social worker, so I can say this. It's always good to go talk to somebody. And we're always here for you. And if you need the platform, like I said, we're reaching over 2 million people a month right now. So if you guys need us to get anything out there, we've been texting. You let me know. Even if it's a text message, we'll get it out there, and I'll check up on you guys when I'm done with the second show today. But please keep us in the loop. I'll stay in touch with Steve and you guys, and just know that we are thinking of you. And as Pink says here, prayers up. So we are behind you and wishing for the very, very best. So we'll see you at 7 o'clock. Love you, America. Love you, California. Love you, Akron, Ohio. And of course, Springfield, Missouri. Go Mizzou. And we will find Riley Strain. Guys, stick around for 1 second.